gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Bass in your face.
What the hell is going on down there?
Bass in your face.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or are watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it is called Uncommon Sense, because here on this platform, we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions. But not everyone uses logic. So for that reason, it is called Uncommon Sense. I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And also the subscriber mode has been enabled. Meaning, if you're not a subscriber and if you wish to enter a comment in the chat, you will need to subscribe to the channel. I also have another channel called Latina Diaspora, where I discuss issues pertaining to Latinos in the United States. The link to that channel is in the description. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to all those who've already subscribed to the channel. Whether you've been a supporter from the very beginning or just recently joined, I really appreciate your love and continued support. I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who follow me on social media, as well as those who allow me to enter into your devices and those who watch from the clouds, even the haters. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you have not done so, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the bell notifications to all. So therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. So as you can see by the thumbnail, the description, the topic for tonight is how to celebrate the holiday. Okay. Actually, it should be before the holidays. Okay. So now we're entering into that time of the year when we have all sorts of celebrations, such as Thanksgiving, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's, and of course, Three Kings Day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you what I believe would be some principles that help you to keep your celebrations joyful without going through a lot of needless stress. But before we get into the main topic, we're going to have another episode of In My Words. Of course, I hate to say this, but the government shutdown continues. I believe it in the fifth week. And of course, a lot of the focus have been, and it should be made, on the fact that funding for SNAP benefits have has been affected by the government shutdown. But there is another effect of the government shutdown, which has to do with travel. Okay. As a result of the government shutdown, many of the employees that they do their job, making sure that trip to the friendly skies are safe, are not being paid. So as a result of all this, there may be fewer flights available because there's not as many staff available willing to work to maintain security. And this could be a big problem, particularly as we get closer to the Thanksgiving weekend. Okay, which is one of the busiest traveling days of the year. The days between the day before Thanksgiving and then the following Monday. So that could be a huge problem for all those who fly, okay, and want to get to their destination, whatever it may be. Um, I'm sure some people they may consider taking alternate options, perhaps either getting there by Amtrak or getting there by bus or Greyhound, or perhaps just simply driving themselves. Um, as I stated before, there is a lot of guilt to go around. So, so we shall see. Also, there have been some courts that demanded that the Trump administration fund the SNAP benefits for the month of November using what other funds are necessary. Of course, the Trump administration may or may appeal to the ruling that these courts have made. Um, the fact of the matter is, we should never have had a government shutdown to begin with. Okay. Now, will the voters remember this when it comes to elections next year? I don't know. Only time will tell. The next thing I want to talk about is that now New York City has a new mayor. My name is Sonhan Mandani. And what's unique about this person? First of all, he is the youngest person to become mayor at age 34. Also, he's the first mayor to become Muslim. Now, of course, there's a lot of controversy regarding some of the statements that he made or may not have made, um, particularly when it comes to the state of Israel. Now, let me make this perfectly clear. I am not in agreement with all that they've done. There's plenty of room for criticism for the Israeli government. But if we're going to be truly accurate and factual, we have to pass some of the blame on Hamas for all the activities. Okay. And one thing we have to bear in mind: you don't repay evil with evil. And I think um, the words of Gandhi are appropriate when he said, "An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind." And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are blinded by hatred. And the final thing that I'm going to discuss before we get into the main topic is one thing we must never lose sight of. While during this time of the year that we are approaching, it is a happy time for many people because they're with family, they're with loved ones, they get to enjoy company of others, they get to eat and have uh, some recreation. The reality that this is not a happy time for all. There are people who are dealing with bouts of depression due to multiple factors, such as losing their livelihood, the fact that for some people that this is the first holiday season without their loved ones. There's also those who romantic relationships and marriages have ended. Those are also dealing with um, medical issues of one sort or another. All this, um, which has the terrible effect where people are contemplating self deletion. So, in with that mindset, I will be sharing topics regarding mental health issues, definitely regarding self-deletion, how to avoid it. And of course, I will have resources for those who are in that state when they're currently thinking about self-deletion. I just want to make it perfectly clear that uh, as serious as your mental health is concerned, it is a temporary situation. The last thing you want to do is do something that will leave a truly negative effect on your loved ones, not to mention your own soul. Okay? Because unfortunately, when people do self delete, what happens is that it has devastating effects on the family and loved ones, and they have a lot of self guilt. So I will share those resources um, later this month. Now, with that being said, we're going to get into the main topic. Good evening, Irby. Thank you very much for stopping by. Um, as an attempt to try to change the algorithm during the week, I may go on early, not earlier than 9 o'clock, because I do want the people in the West Coast to be able to catch my lives. It's just just trying to find a different time slot where I can generate more of an audience. Um, I want to state that the link to join the panel has been pinned. Should anyone wishes to hit that link and opine regarding the topic at hand, they may do so. Let me make this perfectly clear. If I never seen you before, if I never heard from you before, I will insist that you come up in the backstage to make sure that no one tries to flash any pornographic images, which would cause the people of YouTube to take down the stream. Once I made the determination you're not going to do anything of those type of shenanigans, I will left you on the panel. Now, as far as how to celebrate the holiday, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some things to consider and some principles which will help you to keep everything in perspective. Now, one of the problems is that people have that not able to celebrate the holidays is that they may have unrealistic expectations. Okay, as far as whatever plans that they may make, as far as expecting gifts, uh, and not only gifts, but special gifts and things of that nature. Also, certain expectations regarding what is a good time and things of that nature. And one thing we all have to bear in mind is that not all of us are doing well financially. Okay. There are people who hours have been cut. There are people who have been laid off. There have been people who are dealing with multiple financial issues. So if you're going to do any type of celebrations and things of that nature, you do have to be realistic on what you are able to do and not able to do. Okay, and this just doesn't go as far as planning any celebrations and things of that nature, but it also goes as far as gifts are concerned. Okay, one thing I will strongly recommend: that you set yourself a budget, okay, as far as gifts are concerned. So, what I would suggest is the following. First of all, you make up a list as far as who you wish to give a gift to, okay, and you determine who would that be. Most likely it's going to be loved ones. It might be your close friends. It may be your significant other. Okay. So once you determine a list of people who you wish to get a gift, then you need to start thinking about a budget. Okay, which meaning how much you're going to spend for each gift. Okay. What I would not recommend that you have a huge list of people to give gifts to. Okay, because not everyone has the financial resources. Okay, one of the problems is that when people go overboard, particularly when it comes to buying gifts, is that when January comes along, they have a huge amount of debt to pay. And what happens is people are becoming very dependent on the refund check. Okay. Um, and people actually plan their expenditures uh, before getting a refund check. One thing we have to bear in mind, okay, which is that is considered like found money. Okay. And you may get a refund, you may not get a refund. It all depends what is your tax situation. But one sure way that you can avoid going broke is first of all, have a realistic list of people who you wish to give gifts to and have a realistic amount of money that you wish to purchase on these gifts. It could be something as simple as 10 gifts and maybe, I don't know, $25 each gift. Okay. That is if you have it. Some of you, okay, may not even have that much. Maybe some of you should think about just getting a list of maybe 5 people or what have you. I would not recommend getting a list of saying 20, 30, 40 people because you're going to go broke. Okay. So start thinking about who who you wish to get a gift to and stick with a budget and don't go overboard. If you stick to a budget, then you don't have to worry about getting a huge financial bill. Particularly if you decide to use credit cards um, to purchase gifts. As far as what type of gifts, um, my recommendation is get gifts where people are going to get a great deal of use out of it. Okay, particularly if you're living in the Northeast, where when it gets a little chilly, or what some people call extremely cold, scarves could be great gifts, hats could be great gifts, gloves could be great gifts. Okay. Now, some people will give gift cards. That's perfectly fine as long as you have put some money behind it, maybe $30, $40, what have you. And at least that way, um, they can purchase whatever, use the gift card for whatever they want, whether it be to buy, they get a gift or what have you. Another thing to determine is What is the meaning behind the holidays for you? Okay, because we all need to understand that not everyone look at the holiday season in the same way. For many of us, it is a time to be with family. It is a time to be with loved ones. It is a time for eating. It is a time for libations. It is a time for listening to music. Okay. Now, sometimes, if we're not careful, we may tend to overindulge. And what do I mean by that? I'm talking about overindulging when it comes to food, also overindulging when it comes to beverages, particularly liquor. Now, I'm not saying starve yourself, but what I am saying is be mindful of your of your portions. Okay. Um, what you can do is like take a small sample of everything that is there, like you know a small sample of meat, a small sample of vegetables, a small sample of rice, a small sample of potato salad. Uh, okay, what it does is it allows you to sample and try new foods without having to bust just your belt to do it. And of course during the holidays we have office parties to go to. And of course during the office parties there's going to be liquor that's going to be available. Now I'm not going to tell you not to consume alcohol, but I what I will advise you is be very careful regarding your consumption. Okay, particularly if you know for a fact that you're going to be driving, you may want to consider not consuming alcohol, or at least not consuming any alcohol until you have some eaten some food. Okay, one thing to consume alcohol on a full stomach. It's another thing when your stomach is empty, because when you try to consume alcohol on an empty stomach, it will have more strong effect. And one thing we all know that consumption of alcohol does slow the reaction time. And if you overindulge in alcohol, it can impair your judgment. And I'm going to speak about a situation that happened in real life. I know a person that went to a function where there was alcohol being offered. This person consumed a large portion of alcohol. What happened was he had an engagement with a member of the opposite sex. So what happened is this person decided to engage in intercourse with this female. Unfortunately, due to the fact that his judgment was impaired by alcohol, this person decided to engage in intercourse without any uh, protection. And the problem is when you engage in intercourse, okay, there are several risks involved. Number one, you can get someone pregnant when an unwanted pregnancy, which means you may have to be responsible for child support for at least 18 years. Another negative effect is you can expose yourself to STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, not to mention exposing yourself to demonic influence because you do not know what type of influences that person, the opposite sex, is carrying. Okay. And of course, in today's age, people think it's okay to engage in indiscriminate intercourse and things of that nature. Um, all I'm going to tell you is this: that every time you engage in intercourse before marriage or after marriage, which is called adultery, you expose yourself to whatever demonic influences is there. You also expose yourself to unwanted pregnancy, and you also expose yourself to sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV. Now, if that is not enough motivation for you to be careful, if that's not enough motivation to lead chaste lives, I don't know what else is there. And of course, another thing we do have to bear in mind is that all of us, from time to time, um, will deal with times where we're not happy, times where we are depressed due to multiple issues or, or, or multiple circumstances. And sometimes we can feel overwhelmed, and sometimes we can feel pressure to attend every social function. We are not mandated to attend every function, okay? And in fact, it's perfectly okay if you decide not to engage in some social functions, okay? You do need some time to be with yourself. You do need some time to escape from um, the noises of the outside world, okay? Now, for some of us, we would use the time to think about things like for example, when it comes to Thanksgiving, giving thanks to God for all the blessings that we've received. While we should give thanks every single day because we are allowed to to see the light of day. At least for one day out of the year, there is a day set aside to give thanks um, for the many blessings that we all receive. And of course, in my case, the way I celebrate the holidays is the following. First of all, any shopping for gifts and things of that nature, I usually do the month of November because I prefer to get that out of the way. By doing that, I focus on some things for the month of December, which for me is I look at it as a time of self reflection. I look at it as a time of examination. I look at it as a time to get closer to God and also to meditate on His love, His mercy, His compassion. And of course, I think about what is for me the true meaning of Christmas, which does not focus on a morbid obese Caucasian person on a red suit flying with eight flying reindeer all throughout the year, giving gifts to children every 24th of December in the evening. My main focus of Christmas is the birth of Jesus Christ. While it is true there are pagan influences in Christmas, I prefer to think of the birth of Jesus. Not only the birth of Jesus, but also the fact that he's become alive in the lives of many people who have acknowledged his lordship. Also, there's some things you may want to consider doing as a positive way um, to celebrate the holidays. Okay, for example, there's various different organizations that have toy drives in order to give presents to needy children. That's something. So you may want to consider either buying toys to give to needy children, or perhaps you have some, or perhaps you can give money so they can to organizations so they can purchase toys for needy children. Another wonderful way um, to celebrate the holidays, if you have clothing that you wish to donate that's in good condition, that's clean, to certain, because there's certain organizations that always in need of clothing, particularly coats. Okay, because here in New York it does get a little chilly. Okay, and sometimes you have people who do not have coats. So one thing you can do is if you have like an extra coat that you know that's in good condition and you don't use it, you may want to consider donating coats to certain organizations, whether it be the Salvation Army or Catholic Charities, things of that nature. And what you're doing is, first of all, you're thinning out your clothing closet, but at the same time, you're providing clothing to those who are in need. So what you're doing is a good deed. Another thing you might want to consider, um, becoming a volunteer. It's an organization that provide meals. Okay, because here, okay, in I would say in every major city and even small cities, you have organizations, you have churches, you have places of worship that what they would do is that for Thanksgiving and Christmas, they will offer a hot meal to whether it be someone that's an elderly person or a person that's down on their luck. So what you're doing is a good deed. If you ever thought about donating your time to work, at a soup kitchen or a pantry, volunteering to provide hot meals. And I know that there are people here in New York. What they do is that they volunteer food to give to the hungry. Okay, which is a wonderful thing to do, and also focusing on the spirit of giving, and not only the spirit of giving, but biblical applications. As Jesus said, um, I was hungry, but you fed me. I was thirsty, but you gave me drink. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was I was lonely, but you visited me. Okay, and what that does, it gives more meaning to your holiday season, and it helps you to focus um, things that are not just physical, but also spiritual, as far as examples of God's love. Okay, so when you are in the mindset to donate clothing or toys to needy children and families, you're really doing an errand of mercy. Also, you may want to continue attending services. Okay, whether it would be a church or a synagogue or a mosque. Okay, that's another way that you can celebrate the holidays. So for me, the highlight December the 24th is attending Christmas Eve services. Okay, which actually focus on the birth of Jesus. Okay, because for me, that's the main reason for the holiday. Yes, it's great um, to spend your holiday with loved ones. Yes, it's great to be to go out there and and eat some good food. Yes, it's great to be to break bread with other people and and at time of fellowship and things of that nature. That's great. Okay, but for me, the focus on Thanksgiving is to be thankful to God for all the blessing He has given me. Not only all the blessing, but all the for His faithfulness, His mercy, His compassion, uh, and just for God being God. Okay, and when it comes to Christmas, yes, it's great to be with family. It's great to be able to eat. It's great to be able to enjoy music, and of course things of that nature. But the main thing is, of course, the birth of Jesus Christ. Okay, and of course, I am mindful of the fact that for this time of the year, not everybody is having a good time. Not everyone is happy. Not everyone is joyful. There are people who are dealing with bouts of depression. There are people who are alone. There are people who are thinking about self-deletion. And sometimes the ones that suffer the loneliness the worst is the elderly. Many of them are not able to travel, go outside. There are people who their health is declining, and they're also dealing with the fact that they have lost loved ones, that they have lost family and friends of this nature, and sometimes people in their busy schedule sometimes forget to visit their loved ones. So if you really want to do something nice, and particularly if it's been a while since you haven't visited, your parents, visit them. Okay, bring some foods for them to eat. Okay, uh, do a couple hours for them. I mean, definitely they will definitely appreciate it. Okay, because as they get older, they become more dependent on other people. Okay, so just to continue, for those who are just watching me now, tonight's topic is how to celebrate the holiday. So I've been talking about some of the things that you can do and some of the things to consider to celebrate the holiday within expectations, also within things that you are able to do, things that you are that within your realm. Okay, and again, if you plan things carefully, you're gonna have a wonderful, or at least a sane holiday season. Okay, so definitely do not go overboard buying gifts to the extent that you go into debt. Do not overindulge when it comes to liquor. Do not overindulge when it comes to food. Okay. Look, I get it. You see a huge spread, and your eyes get to be 3 times bigger, and you start to think, well, I'm gonna have some of this. I'm gonna have some of this. I'm gonna have some of this. And you can have some of this and some of that. Just be mindful of your portion control. Okay. And you can taste, just to get enough for taste without you having to, you know, take, unbuckle your belt because your stomach becomes so full. And of course, if you're going to consume alcohol, just don't do to the extent that you become inebriated and your judgment is impaired. And particularly if you are driving, in all fairness, you should not be consuming alcohol at all. Okay? Because the fact of the matter is, alcohol does impair your judgment. It also impairs your reactions. Okay. So that's the reason why if you're going to be driving, you should not be consuming alcohol. Now, if you're going to make sure, get there either by Uber or Lyft or someone's going to bring you home, you might have a little bit. If it's one thing to have to engage with some liquor, okay, but the whole point is make sure that your celebrations are sane. Make sure that your celebrations are within reason. Make sure that you don't have any insane, unrealistic expectations as far as planning and things of that nature. And particularly if you're dealing with the loss of a loved one, um, just be patient with yourself, okay? And just it's okay to cry. It's okay to grieve, okay? And don't feel obligated to attend every function, okay? Attend the function that you wish to attend, and you're not obligated to stay for the entire evening. But you should go. You should stay there for at least a considerable amount of time, that you have, at least have an opportunity to interact with other people. And the bottom line, just be patient with yourself, because one thing we all have to bear in mind, there is no expiration point when it comes to grief. There is no expiration point when it comes to dealing with loss. Now, I have been talking for about 45 minutes. So if anyone wishes to hit the link and opine regarding the topic in hand, then I do so. If you have if you disagree with anything that I said, this is your opportunity to share and why. Just make sure that you do it in a respectful way. Now, if no one hits the link or no one else put the comment, then I'll start to wrap it up. It's just that I just want to give you some things to consider when it comes to the holiday season, and also to be mindful, um, that you might encounter people that are grieving the loss of loved ones. You might encounter people that dealing with um, illnesses, particularly chronic illnesses. You're also dealing with people who are uh, dealing with mental health issues. Do be considerate to these people. Do not be judgmental, okay? And of course, what we all can do is pray for their healing of emotions, memories, and spiritually. Okay. Do not judgment. Do not judge them. Do not say snap out of it. Okay. Because not everyone deals with grief the same way. Not everyone deals with loss the same way. And an apology is that my neighbors decided to make some noise outside. Unfortunately, I have no control over that. So, before I wrap this up, I want to let everybody know that I will be live tomorrow night at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, where I will have another episode of open discussion. For those of you who are not familiar with what happens in open discussion, I will share my views regarding several topics. And of course, the audience, that is people like yourself, will have an opportunity to opine. Also, there may be certain things that you will want me to discuss, and I will do my best to comply. The only thing I will not discuss is, of course, the situation going on with the Israeli government and Hamas, because people are not going to argue intellectually. People aren't going to get emotional. And I'm not going to have that type of discussion here on this platform. If you want to do it on your platforms, knock yourself out. This is not going to happen here. So, starting next week, you're going to see streams around 9 or 9:30. So I'm just trying to find a time where it generate larger audience. So, excuse me. Okay. So in any case, I'm going to start to wrap this up. But let me just state in summary. Um, However, whatever way that you choose to celebrate the holiday or the holidays, just bear in mind certain things. Um, Take into account what what is the situation financially. Also take into account what's your mental state. Also take into account the fact that you may encounter people who are dealing with a difficult time. Be supported, be patient, and bottom line, be understanding. And whatever you do, do not judge them. Okay? Because one thing to bear in mind, in the manner that you judge, you're going to be judged by God equally. So, with that being said, I am good evening, Gigi. Thank you very much for stopping by. Oh, before I forget, let me just state for the fact that my dear friends Gigi and Irby, they have their YouTube channels. Okay, so I'm gonna ask that you show some love to these fine people. Check out their content, and if you haven't subscribed to their channels, please do so. Okay. Um, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't cause anything to subscribe. It doesn't cause anything to check out their content, and it does help with their algorithm, particularly if that in the new channels that trying to get to the point where they can get that coin, so to speak, you're quite welcome. You're quite welcome, Gigi. So I'm just getting okay. So basically, I've just been talking about how to celebrate the holiday. So just to summarize, I'm just talking about certain things to take into consideration, and among them, just be realistic regarding where they are emotionally, where they are mentally, and also we have to bear in mind that there are people that we may deal with where the holidays is not a happy time for them. Okay, they're dealing with some of them dealing with the loss of a loved one. Some of them are dealing with physical illnesses. Some of them are dealing with the loss of a romantic relationship. Also, some people, unfortunately, are dealing with mental health issues, particularly when it comes to depression. And of course, unfortunately, some people are thinking about self deletion. So we need to be understanding in dealing with these people. We need to let them know that they're not alone. We also need to let them know that they're bigger than their pain, that they're bigger than their struggles, that they're bigger than their illnesses, okay? And that what their illness does not define who they are. Their mental health does not define who they are, okay? And when everything is said and done, we are, each one of us is made in the image of God Almighty. And God loves all of us very, very much. So, so with that being said, of course, I hope that you enjoy this life. I hope this that the information, or actually some of the suggestions, will help you in preparation for the holiday season. And hopefully, I gave you some things to consider. Of course, you're more than welcome to share um, if you truly believe that this has been a benefit. Okay, I'm just sharing what are some of the things that helped me to go through, um, the holiday season. And believe me, it's never easy to deal with the first holiday season when you're going through obstacles to deal with. And sometimes it can be just a challenge to try to find a reason to be thankful and to celebrate, life. But with that being said, I'm gonna close the same way that I always close. We must do everything possible to avoid the presence of the mentally and intellectually challenged, because if we fail to do so, we'll be infected by the stupidity and massive insanity. And whatever we say and do, give the glory to God. And I'm just going to close with a few words in Spanish. Cuando llegando el momento, celebrar los festivales como el Día de Acción de Gracias, como Navidad, como la despedida de año, o el Día de los Reyes Magos, trata de entender que no todo el mundo está alegre. Hay personas que están pasando de situaciones debido de cuestiones de salud, problemas económicos, personas que son deprimidos y personas que están contemplando quitando la vida. And with that being said, thank you very much for stopping by. And I'm just going to say, take care, good night, stay blessed, and peace.